When did this crusade begin? This compulsion to expose wrongdoing and so on. When did it begin?
To be very sincere with you, those who have followed my trajectory would notice that even before I became a public official, an elected member of parliament, I have always been conscious about the need to really protect the public purse and to use national resources for the public good. So as a student activist, you know, I led many demonstrations against the diversions of SNIT loans, for example. And my peers will tell you, as NUC's president, I was really big on opposing the cost sharing in our universities, where resources meant for education was diverted into other avenues. We led the Get Fund struggle, the likes of Omane Buama, Haruna Idrisu. We staged the Mobrawa demonstration. And so it's always been a part of me. And then as an opposition activist, a member of the CJ, I recall teaming up with Dr. Omane Buama to go all the way to the Supreme Court to stop the Honorable Jacob Echebi-Lamte from purchasing his state bungalow. So sometimes people try to attack us that it's just a newfound, you know, interest because probably there's a certain political advantage to be gained. But really, if you look at our history, you look at our trajectory, we have been true to these principles. When we joined the CJ, when we participated in all of these public manifestations against graft, against waste. If you look at some of our CJ publications, we were as far back as 2006, 2007, talking about land grab. We published a list. I remember your good self, the likes of Comrade Kwesi Edu. You know, we warned this country that the rate at which public lands were being sold, there will be none left for future development. We will soon not have land for factories. We will soon not have land for hospitals, for doctors' bungalows, and all of that. So it has been a long-standing crusade. And sometimes I am taken aback totally when people attack us and say that, oh, it's just, you know, a sudden interest because we are in a campaign season. Far from that. Far from that. It's just that I find myself in a different role now as a member of parliament. But it's the same principle as either trustee of the Greater Accra Student Representative Council or president of the National Union of Ghana Students or member of the CJA. It's been a consistent battle, a certain, you know, understanding of how this country's resources should be utilized and how best we should pursue the public good. That really is what drives me.
Good. Now, your case, the case you sent to the Supreme Court, what happened to that case? That's in respect of Jacob Echebi-Lamte wanting to buy his bungalow.
Yes. So, I'm glad that you've asked this question. I think that it has been the most misconceived action, and there's been a lot of propaganda out there about this case. Now, the fact of the matter is that we lost the case by a 6-3 decision. But if you read the dissenting judgment, the 3 judges who dissented, Sofa Akufu, Atuguba, and then Adenyera, they dissented. Sofa Akufu in particular, you can call her a prophetess now. She said that the majority have failed to take advantage of this situation, to plug the loopholes and to prevent the total, if you like, looting of public lands which should serve the public good. And she took a strong exception to how land in the public interest has been defined, because by the judgment in that case, which is now law, the majority judges ruled that land in the public interest can still be in the public interest if the use will benefit others, even if they are paying for it. And let me give you the specifics. So Jacob Echebi argues that even though the Constitution says, and that's why we went to the Supreme Court on a constitutional grounds, that under the Constitution, Articles 25 and 6, when the state acquires land and the state no longer has use of the land in the public interest, the state should give the land back to the owners, the original owners. The original owners should have the first right. That is what Article 20 of the Constitution provides. So that's why we went to the Supreme Court, because we said that this was a blatant violation of the Constitution. Jacob Echebi in his response argues that he intends to use the land to put up bungalows for nurses. We then argue that, look, nurses will pay, and that payment will go to Jacob Echebi pocket. He's not going to put it in the national kitty to be shared by all of us. So that cannot be in the public interest. Strangely, the majority judges agreed with Jake that, oh, the nurses will find these bungalows, quite nice and convenient, strategic location. That is also in the public good. It doesn't really matter that they will pay rent. Very bizarre. And that is why the dissenting judges said that, look, you need to really condemn this practice where under the so-called Accra redevelopment policy, we are losing bungalows. Bungalows are being sold to individuals. They are being converted to all kinds of uses that do not benefit the public, and that this case offered a golden opportunity for them to set us on a better path. And that where we are going, will not be in the interest of all of us. Unfortunately, they didn't listen. And when we even went on a review, we filed a review, which was finally determined in 2012, we still lost. But later on, I found out why. Because it emerged that those who were looting the lands had a very clever way of making sure that key elements and leaders in society benefited. So they reserve a few for judges, reserve a few for the military top brass, reserve a few for some top, CEOs, influential people, even pastors, heads of certain organizations and all of that. In a very clever way. And the work we did with the CJA revealed all of that. And interestingly, some of the judges who sat on the case, it emerged that they had been given some of the lands. So when Professor Mills won, actually, some of these judges, including Georgina Wood, the Chief Justice, their lands were withdrawn, were taken away. Many people forget that where the foreign ministry is today, at Airport Residential Area, it had been shared amongst the ruling elite at the time. So things became clearer to us why it was difficult for the judges to rule in our favor, and why they came up with this bizarre. And you see, as fate will have it, today, for the first time in the history of our country, judges have run to court. They have become victims of what we were trying to stop. 13 bungalows belonging to judges have been demolished only last year. A private developer called Frame, he's the owner of Frames Oil, says that he has bought the land. He now owns it. And this is prime land, cantonments, opposite the U.S. Embassy. Justice Honyanuga is one of them. Justice Jaisayo and others. These are the Justice Akamba, Justice Oforiata. These are our eminent juries. They are bungalows that they've occupied for many years. It's all been sold. And for the first time, judges have run to their colleagues. Will you believe that the judges even had an injunction, and yet the injunction was defied last year? So I have no doubt in my mind that if I am to go back to court, based on now what has happened, how the judges themselves have suffered, how they have been dislodged, they would not give the kind of ruling that they gave. So moving forward, I am happy that a number of colleagues and I have come together sponsoring a private members bill what I call the Protection of State Assets Bill. And we are seeking to prohibit all politicians, because the analysis we have done, if you take out the politicians, more than 85% of this problem is solved. It is because of the interest of politicians, either they are cronies, they are friends. That is why all these state lands are being sold. And now it has even gone beyond just state lands. Hotels are being sold. You remember our recent struggle to keep the Senate hotels. It didn't make any sense that these hotels that were making profit will be sold to a cabinet minister, the Minister for Food and Agriculture. Now we have a situation where people die and we see in their will Acheampong Forest, Ramsar sites in the case of Sir John. You know, the Du Bois Center has been transferred for 50 years. You have the Teshi military shooting range is gone. Parks and gardens lands, encantonments in Wa. It's as if the country is on sale. Everything is being sold. There is no sacred cow any longer. Everything is on sale. And I am glad that we are getting so far some support, at least as a coalition of the willing, to have this private members bill passed. Certainly it's not every politician who is excited about this, but we are looking at the future of our country. And I really worry that, you see, if you look at what Kwame Nkrumah did, Kwame Nkrumah acquired a lot of land banks for future development. Anytime he's putting up a hospital or a school, there is extra land for bungalows, for staff or doctors or nurses, and for future expansion. The current generation of leaders is all about selling. It's all about selling. I don't remember the last time I heard of land bank having been acquired for future development. As the population is expanding, as you know, there is the need to provide more jobs, to industrialize and all of that. So we cannot continue with the reckless state capture going on. And I am hoping that we will have more and more Ghanaians join this crusade so that we can salvage what is left.
Just by the way, did Jacob Echeblante build the nurses' bungalows?
No, the nurses' bungalows. Brilliant question. They were never built. The land is still there. Interestingly, I haven't seen any development. I drive past every day going to Parliament because it's just opposite the building of the Mormons. That's the Independence Avenue. Very prime location, just next to the U.S. ambassador's residence. You know, and it's there. It's his property now. It's for his family, whoever, you know, inherited his estate under his will is for him. Meanwhile, that was land that was acquired for the public good. Chief of staffs used to stay there. Ministers used to stay there. He had himself renovated the property not too long ago before he decided to buy it. And you see, it's so unconscionable. And the question that we must always ask is that if our predecessors, the ministers who served under Nkrumah, who served under Acheampong, you know, who served under Rawlings, if they decided that they will move out of their bungalows, they will sell it to themselves, they will buy it, I mean, what will be left? Would there have been any left for you to come and occupy as your duty post? So there is no morality, there can be no justification for this, but unfortunately some people still defend this, you know, nation-wrecking conduct.
What's your problem with the president? I mean, you have a president, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who all of a sudden discovered that we have a homeless God. You know, so he decides to build some accommodation for God. I mean, you are fighting him. God has no place to stay. He wants to give God a home. And we are fighting. Why?
I like your question because it exposes how, you know, ridiculous this whole episode is.
No, it's not ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous. Look, the Almighty, all of us who read the Bible, He told us that He's going to heaven. His Son, Jesus Christ, when people were weeping that we'll lose you, He said, no, don't weep. I'm going to prepare for you better mansions, that in my Father's house, the mansions there, nowhere on earth compares. So as Christians, strive to keep your salvation, to get your name in the book of life, to qualify to occupy that mansion in heaven. Then suddenly we have a president who comes after all of this and is defying the Christian doctrine. Because I have always grown up from Sunday school knowing that as Christians we must work hard, try and be holy, be pure, follow the dictates of the Bible, New Testament scriptures, so that you can get a room in the Almighty's mansion, where we are told that it is called happiness.
That mansion is in the skies. That mansion is in the skies, it's in heaven.
But in the Bible, God
on earth, God has no mansion. And the president wants to give God a comfortable place to stay. You say no. Why?
It's so ridiculous. So ridiculous. Where in the Bible did God say that at a point he would like to relocate from heaven to earth? And that of all the places he would choose Ghana, Accra, and of all the people he would choose Akufo-Addo to build it for him. Meanwhile, we know that in the Bible, somebody like David, you know, who the Bible describes as a man after God's heart, he was stopped from building because God said he wasn't holy enough. He was stopped from building. Look, this whole episode is so ridiculous. And you see, the lack of respect for the Ghanaian people. You tell us that it's a personal pledge. You have told God that if he helps you win the election, you will build a cathedral in his honor. We all make personal pledges. When you make a personal pledge, that personal pledge must be fulfilled by you. What do you take God for? What do you take all of us for? You go and make your personal pledge. You don't consult us. We are not part of the bargain. We are not involved in the negotiations. Then, when it comes to redeeming that personal pledge, you are using our resources. And you see, if you look at, I think that in the history of our country, we have never seen such recklessness on this scale. This project started at $100 million. It is now valued at $450 million. The last time the Secretariat came to Parliament, the National Cathedral Secretariat. Already, $58.1 million has been sunk in what is now described infamously as the world's most expensive pit. $58.1 million. Now, if you consider the fact that this $450 million, it has no bearing at all with the demolitions that have taken place and the compensation that arises. That is another cost on its own. And I can give you the list. The president decided, and when you read Bishop Dakeward Mill's resignation letter, he states that at their first meeting of the Board of Trustees, the president told them that two things that he has decided already, they cannot have a say. The location and then the architect, David Ajayi. So the location, which led to these massive demolitions. As we speak, the Malian ambassador's residence was demolished to pave way for this National Cathedral project. The last time I engaged the Malians, they are waiting for their full compensation. They have only recently been allocated land at airport residential area. All of us know the cost of land at airport residential area. Then we have bungalows belonging to judges. 15 of them demolished. In the process, I know an eminent appeal court judge, Justice Said, who resigned. He was so appalled because the way and manner it was done, the indignity that they suffered, short notice, hey, God is relocating to Accra, everybody must move. So judges' bungalows, 15 demolished. Now these judges had to be relocated in private accommodation. We paid rent for it. Then we now have to build for them. We have only recently finished those new structures at millions of Ghana cedis cost. It is not part of the $450 million. Then the Judicial Training Institute was also demolished. Bungalows belonging to Shraj was demolished. Scholarship Secretariat was also demolished. The Passport Hide Office was demolished. And as ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I recall that we were called upon to approve 10 million Ghana cedis for the relocation of the passport head office. I am not done. An IT company called Comsys, their headquarters was also demolished. Then there's a real estate project, Waterstone Realty, an apartment complex. It was also demolished. Indeed, in the case of Waterstone Realty, they are at the High Court seeking compensation of $6 million because they say that they are tired of waiting to be compensated. So by the time you put all of this compensation together, the compensation that must go to the judges, that must go to Shraj, that must go to Scholarship Secretariat, Passport Head Office, Malian Ambassador, and all of that, we are running into billions of dollars. Meanwhile, this is a country that is bankrupt, that is insolvent, that is broke, that is seeking a bailout from the IMF, a country that cannot provide basic amenities for its people. And then the president is engaged in this recklessness. And you see, if you look at the levels of corruption, as we speak, because of this project, a gentleman called Carrie Summers is keeping our $6 million. I chased him all the way to America. The arrangement they had with him was that he will raise funds for the project. Now, best practice everywhere is that when you raise funds, if you're a fundraiser, when you raise the funds, then you get a commission. This gentleman raised nothing for us. He was given $6 million. He must refund that money. He has still not returned the money. Then you also have Reverend Kwesi Boateng, who clearly should be in jail. And I'm saying this on authority because when he took me to court, the Human Rights Court has ruled that his conduct is criminal and that he should not be working as a free man. This man is appointed as secretary to the board of trustees as Reverend Victor Kwesi Boateng. Then he's paying himself as Kwabena Edu-Jemfi in a company known as JNS Talent Center Limited, 2.6 million. That money has not been refunded to the state. Then you have David Ajayi, the president's chosen architect, who, as we speak, has been paid in excess of 35 million Ghana cedis, inflationary pricing. Now, what is even worse, in the course of my parliamentary oversight, I noticed that there's a lot of anomalies, a lot of corruption, just blatant thievery. People were just dipping their hands, taking money for no work done. So let me check with the Public Procurement Authority if there has been any procurement approval for this project. So I did an RTI request to the PPA. And will you believe the PPA's response that there has been no procurement approval for this? The PPA does not know about the National Cathedral project. Most shocking. At a time that we have a former Attorney General as president, who should know that you can't use public funds for any project without going through the procurement process, the legal procurement process. So here we are, huge loss to the state. Look, I have no doubt in my mind that people will have to go to jail for causing financial loss if we don't punish this National Cathedral loot, this recklessness, this madness. Because what President Akufo-Addo did is just total madness. And I'm not surprised that even the eminent clergy, virtually all the credible ones, have left this board of trustees. Bishop Becky Ward-Mills has resigned. Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams has resigned. Reverend Isud Anaba. They said that, look, the shocking levels of corruption, of blatant thievery, they cannot stand it. And they have all left. So people will have to answer. And when we come to power, I am glad that President Mahama, Professor Nana Jinapor, they have all spoken on this National Cathedral project. They have said that they will demand accountability. I am hoping to see a full-scale commission of inquiry because there are so many layers and so many actors, so many looters who will have to be punished. And most importantly, retrievals. Look, the likes of David Ajayi, the likes of Carrie Summers, the likes of Reverend Victor Kusi-Boateng, Kwabena Edu-Jemfi, whatever he is, the only man born by 2 biological mothers 2 years apart. All of them will have to refund our monies to us. They must not be allowed to get away. And then I think that we need a national discussion about the future of that pit. Fortunately, I have heard very interesting proposals from the TUC, for example, saying that we can use the place for a specialist hospital. Some have said that Ghana doesn't have a specialist pediatric hospital, so we should consider that. I think that would be more pleasing to the Almighty. This madness about suddenly God wants to come and live in Accra under an Akufo-Addo president will have to stop.